Have you ever noticed how letting go doesn't feel like freedom at first? It feels like grief, like failure, like silence so loud it drowns your heartbeat. Letting go isn't clean. It doesn't come with applause or closure. It comes quietly, like smoke leaving a room you forgot was burning. We like to say, just move on, as if grief is logical, as if healing happens in straight lines. But the truth, letting go isn't the hard part. It's everything that comes after. It's the nights you don't get a text back, the birthdays they no longer remember, the version of you that only existed inside that dynamic, that pattern, that pain, that role. Gone. And now what? You're standing in the ruins, heart still echoing with the rhythm of a relationship, an identity, a belief that no longer exists. Letting go isn't about walking away. It's about who you have to become to never go back. Because here's the secret no one tells you. We don't fear loss. We fear becoming a version of ourselves that no longer fits inside the life we once knew. And sometimes healing feels like dying, not all at once, but piece by piece. Letting go is an initiation, a death ritual for the person who settled, explained, performed. And when you finally release them, or it, or you realize you were never holding on. You were being held back. In that moment of release, time stretches and warps. The past and future collide in a single heartbeat. You feel both loss and possibility, as if the world has split open for you to step through. So let me ask you something real. What are you still gripping that has already let go of you? That relationship you keep checking up on? That friend who hasn't asked how you are in months, but you still think about them every morning? That version of yourself who always tried to keep the peace, even when it destroyed you? Why are you still bleeding energy for people who don't notice the wound? Why do you scroll through old messages, hoping for warmth that's never coming? Now imagine this. You let go, not just physically, but energetically. You stop responding. You stop explaining. You stop rehearsing how to be enough in their world. What happens then? Who would be left if you stopped making yourself easy to love? What would you discover if you stopped chasing echoes of approval? It's a terrifying question, because most of us were taught to earn affection through self-abandonment, to be agreeable, to be forgiving, to be emotionally available at all costs, to sacrifice our own peace for a sense of belonging. But what if you flipped it? What if you became unavailable, not out of spite, but out of self-respect? What if silence became your boundary? What if leaving wasn't weakness, but wisdom? What if stepping back was the bravest thing you ever did? Letting go is scary not because we lose others, but because it forces us to face the parts of ourselves we handed away to keep them. So I'm asking you this, not to shame you, but to wake you. What are you still holding that's already outgrown you? And more importantly, what would happen if you finally set it down? And where could you rise if you stopped sinking so low? If this message resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe and join this journey of self-discovery and healing. This space isn't for pretending everything's fine. It's for the people who feel too much, who've lost themselves trying to be what everyone else needed, who are finally starting to whisper, "What about me?" Here we unlearn performance. Here we take our energy back, piece by sacred piece. Drop a comment, even if it's just, "I choose myself," to let me know you're here, ready to reclaim your energy. You're not alone. We're growing stronger together, one step at a time. Thank you for being here. We've been taught that holding on makes us strong. Yet the true strength lies in knowing when to release. You're not exhausted because you feel too much. You're exhausted because you keep offering your emotional availability to those who are spiritually absent. You keep pouring from an empty cup, convincing yourself it's generosity when really it's self-erasure. Think about every time you stayed silent just to avoid conflict. Every apology you whispered for things you didn't do. Every text you sent hoping they'd respond. Each reaction carved away at your energy reserve, feeding other people's expectations. Here's the unseen truth. Emotional availability is a currency, and yours is precious. When you spend it on people who treat your vulnerability like free samples, you bankrupt yourself. Their indifference or conditional affection feels like rejection, but it's really the echo of your own suppressed needs. Every predictable nod, every rehearsed excuse, every faceless "I understand" message taught them how to use you. Because people don't control you with force, They control you with expectation, and you've been raising interest on a debt they never intended to repay. This cycle is a subtle trap. It masquerades as compassion, loyalty, even love, but it's fueled by guilt and the fear of being alone. You hold on thinking you're preserving connection, but you're actually preserving a version of yourself that's been programmed to serve. Let release be your revolution. Choose to protect your emotional currency. Step out of their ledger, reclaim your balance, and invest in relationships that honor your worth. Carl Jung, a pioneer of depth psychology, taught us that our unconscious patterns shape the way we relate to the world. He said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This irritation, this friction, is not about them. It's a reflection of the parts of you that you've hidden, denied, or abandoned." Jung called these disowned aspects the shadow, those traits and wounds we refuse to integrate. When you cling to people or situations that drain you, it's not simply attachment. It's your shadow demanding to be seen. By staying overly available, you're unconsciously repeating a script where your worth hinges on your willingness to give, often at the expense of your own needs. Jung's archetype of the wounded healer captures this beautifully. The healer, drawn to mend others, forgets to heal the self. They become conduits for other people's pain, believing that their value is proven only through service. But true individuation, the process of becoming your whole, integrated self, requires reclaiming those projected shadows. Letting go of toxic patterns isn't just setting boundaries. It's excavating the buried parts of your psyche that demand validation through sacrifice. So when you finally step back from draining connections, you're not rejecting others. You're welcoming your shadow home. You're telling yourself, "I matter just as I am." And that, according to Jung, is the beginning of true psychic freedom. Here's a truth that's hard to swallow. You didn't get walked over because people are inherently cruel. You got walked over because you made yourself a bridge, a pathway for everyone else's needs. When you say yes at the expense of your own no, you become a hollow shell of your true self. You start living by other people's scripts, forgetting your own lines. Each neglected boundary chips away at your identity until you're unrecognizable, even to yourself. Ask yourself, who benefits from your constant availability? Is it your peace or someone else's agenda? Every time you mask your pain with a smile, every time you soothe another's tears at the cost of your own, you teach the world to expect that from you forever. That's emotional currency, your energy, your time, your empathy, spent on a ledger you didn't open. People begin to see you not as a person but as a resource, endlessly renewable, infinitely forgiving, eternally present. This imbalance creates a silent tension. You yearn to be seen, yet you're only valued for the services you provide. You crave authentic connection, but stay trapped in transactional exchanges where nothing is owed. And the greatest irony, by trying to keep everyone else comfortable, you've made yourself unbearably uncomfortable. Your own needs become strangers in your mind, familiar yet forbidden. It's time to flip the script, to stop auditioning for roles you never applied for, to reclaim your narrative, and with it, the power to choose exactly where and with whom your emotional currency is spent. If this is resonating with you, I want to hear your voice. Drop a comment below and write, "I choose my peace." Let's see who else is ready to reclaim their emotional currency and stop playing caretaker to those who don't value their sacrifice. This isn't about blame or shame, it's about choice. Your choice to honor your needs and refuse to be drained. If you haven't already, hit subscribe and join this journey of self-discovery and healing. Here we lean into our shadows, set boundaries, and rebuild from the inside out. Every story shared in these comments reminds us we're not alone. Together, we're redefining strength, one boundary at a time, one silent moment at a time. Thank you for being part of this community. Here's a revelation that cuts deep. You were being used, quietly, invisibly, like an open vein feeding someone else's survival. Manipulative people don't raise their voices, they listen for your patterns. They study how you react, how predictable you are, then wield that knowledge like a silent weapon. Carl Jung named this projection, transferring one's own unresolved inner turmoil onto another. When you're always available, you become a mirror for their inner chaos. They offload their fears, their guilt, their insecurities onto you. Every consoling word you offer, every explanation you deliver, every border you erase, teaches them where to push next. You become the solution to their unresolved shadow, their emotional punching bag. And the moment you stop playing along, when you withdraw, when you refuse to react, the entire script falls apart. They panic because their safety net vanishes. They've been living off your energy, sustained by your emotional predictability. This is not your failure. It's theirs. They never truly wanted you. They wanted your submission. Recognizing this feels like betrayal by your own compassion. But it's also your emancipation. The veil lifts, and you see the game for what it is. Now, you can choose differently. You can close the mirror. You can shield your energy. Here's a revelation that cuts deep. You were being used, quietly, invisibly, like an open vein feeding someone else's survival. Manipulative people don't raise their voices. They learn your rhythms. They notice how your heart races at a missed call, how your stomach knots when a text goes unread. They map these reactions, then wield that knowledge like a silent weapon. Carl Jung named this process projection, transferring one's own unrest onto another as an emotional dumping ground. When you're always available, you become the mirror for their unprocessed shadows. They offload their anxiety, shame, and wounds onto you without apology. Every consoling word you whisper, every boundary you dissolve, every excuse you craft, teaches them exactly how far they can push. You become the solution to their crisis, the emotional punching bag that rebounds again and again. And then comes the moment of truth. The day you decide to withdraw. You stop responding. You retreat into strategic silence. At first, they wait for your familiar response. Then they panic. Their world, built on the safety net of your predictability, shatters. They lash out, they plead, they act confused, but none of it is about you. It's about losing the refuge they built in your availability. This is not your failure. It's the rippling of their own shadows. What feels like betrayal is actually liberation. When you recognize the game, you regain power. You close the mirror, reclaim your reflection, your boundaries, your energy. Now you can choose differently. You can step out of the script. You can shield your energy with the quiet certainty of someone who knows their worth. So here's what I want you to do right now. Ask yourself, who really panics when you pull back? Who's been depending on your responses to keep their world intact? In a world that never stops talking, silence feels like absence. But silence is not absence. It is presence magnified. When you stop responding, you stop fueling the story others tell about you. You move from participant to observer. You choose presence over performance. Strategic silence is not withdrawal. It's sovereignty. It's the sacred pause that says, "My energy is mine." Imagine this. Someone expects you to reply immediately. They want your explanation, your reassurance, your emotional labor. But you stay quiet. You withhold your reaction. You watch as their urgency spikes, their questions multiply, their composure cracks. Their panic is your power. They scramble because you no longer play by their rules. You're no longer the easy target, the default safe harbor for their storm. You're the calm eye at the center. Silence can be gentle. It can be a boundary dressed in compassion. Or it can be a shield wrapped in resolve. Either way, it speaks volumes. This is the art of not engaging, of conserving your emotional currency, of reminding the world that you are not a resource to be depleted. You are a sovereign being with the right to choose when and how to show up. Practice silence as an act of self-respect. Listen to the space between the words. Feel the power in your stillness. Over time, you'll notice something astonishing. The less you explain, the clearer your own voice becomes. The less you chase external validation, the stronger your inner compass grows. In that quiet space, you rediscover yourself, unfiltered by expectations. Because sometimes the most potent statement you can make is saying absolutely nothing at all. Now, pause and take a breath. Think about the last time you offered your energy where it wasn't valued. Perhaps a text you instantly replied to, a conversation you carried when you were already empty, a situation you let define your worth. Today, make a different choice. Notice one moment when you feel the urge to explain, to apologize, to reassure. Instead, close your eyes and simply observe your own thoughts and feelings. Let that be your practice of self-respect. Carry this intention with you. I protect my peace. Let it be the silent promise you whisper throughout your day, in every interaction, every decision, every boundary you draw. This isn't about grand gestures. It's about the small everyday acts of honoring yourself, choosing stillness over reaction, presence over performance. Your life transforms in these quiet shifts. Embrace them and watch your world change. Transformation carries a cost. Solitude. Not the emptiness of loss, but the sacred space where rebirth takes root. When you step away from draining interactions, people will ask, "Why are you so distant?" They'll misunderstand silence as rejection or indifference. They won't see the fertile ground you're creating inside. This loneliness isn't a void, it's a crucible. In its quiet depths, you encounter the parts of yourself you've neglected, the dreams you silenced, the boundaries you dissolved, the wounds you hurried to fix for others. Imagine stripping away every external expectation. No more performance, no more explanations, just you, raw and unmediated. That's unsettling at first, like standing naked before a mirror that has no filters. But within that vulnerability lies immense power. You learn to stand alone without feeling lonely. You cultivate a self-reliance that no one can erode. You discover that your value isn't measured by responses or approval, but by the authenticity of your inner life. This sacred loneliness refines you. It distills your essence down to what truly matters. It prepares you for connections that honor both your presence and your absence. So when you feel that sting of isolation, remember, it's not punishment, it's purification. The world you're becoming needs a quiet foundation. Lean into the solitude, let it shape you. Emerge with a clarity that only the stillest moments can provide. You've walked through the fire of release, sat in the crucible of solitude, and faced the shadows you once fled. Now, a new self emerges, whole, sovereign, and unapologetically authentic. This is who you are when you no longer chase echoes of approval, rooted in your own truth. You speak when your soul says yes, and remain silent when it says no. Guarded, yet open. You hold space for genuine connections, but refuse to bail out emotional leak holes that drain you. Empowered through stillness. You've learned that your power lies not in constant action, but in the quiet clarity that precedes it. Integration isn't a finish line, it's a daily practice. Each morning, remind yourself that your worth isn't granted by others, but known by you. Each time you choose boundary over busyness, you weave another thread into this new identity. Carry forward. Serve not from obligation, but from overflow. When you give now, it's because you have energy to spare, not because you need acceptance. You engage with life from a place of fullness, not in fear of scarcity. This is the promise of letting go, not emptiness but spaciousness, not exile but emergence. Your life becomes a canvas for your true self, unfiltered, undiluted, and utterly alive. Embody this transformation by anchoring one daily ritual, whether it's a silent pause before replying, a boundary spoken with compassion, or a moment of stillness in the chaos. You are no longer who you were. You are who you choose to be. You've chosen yourself. You've honored your boundaries, reclaimed your energy, and emerged stronger in the quiet. Now it's time to live as the person you've become. Starting today, carry this promise in your actions and your intentions. I am the guardian of my peace. Let it guide how you speak, how you listen, and how you show up for yourself and others. There's no need for grand declarations or visible proof. Your commitment shows in the small moments, the pause before you respond, the courage to walk away when your heart says no, the compassion you extend without sacrificing your well. This is your new identity, unwavering, sovereign, and deeply alive. Wear it in every choice, every boundary, every silent moment of self-respect. Welcome to a life defined not by what you let go of, but by who you choose to be. Thank you for taking this journey.